In this video, you'll learn the knit stitch. The knit stitch is one of two stitches used in knitting, the knit and the purl. The knit stitch is usually the first stitch that people learn. Okay, so notice here, on one needle, I've already cast on stitches using my long tail cast on. And then I have a second needle that doesn't have any stitches on it. So I'm going to take the needle that has the stitches on it in my left hand, the empty needle in my right. Okay, I'm going to take my working yarn. This is the working yarn, the yarn that comes off of your yarn ball. And I'm going to wrap it over my pointer finger. And I'm also going to tension it around my pinky finger. Okay. And to do that, I usually start by wrapping it around my pinky like that to kind of form a loop, and then stick my pointer finger under it. This is continental knitting. It's also known as German knitting or picking, because I'm picking the stitches. Okay, so now that I have my yarn tensioned over my fingers, I'm going to take my empty needle and stick it into the first loop on my cast on needle. Okay, and I'm doing that by sticking it from the front to the back in a right leaning way. Then I'm going to take my working yarn. Remember, you don't ever want to work off of this tail. You always want to pull off of this ball. I'm going to wrap it over top of my knitting needle, and then I'm going to pull this loop that I just wrapped through that first stitch. Okay, so I'm going to stick it in from the front to the back in a right leaning manner. Okay, I'm going to wrap the yarn over and through. Stick it from front to back, wrap over and through. Front to back, over and through. Front to back, over, through. Let's see if we can do it this way. Front to back, over and through. Front to back, over, through. Okay, and I'm going to continue in this manner until I have knit all of the stitches on my left needle. Alright, so now my left needle is empty and my right needle has all the stitches. Now when I first started knitting, when I got to this point, because I didn't have a teacher, it's like, oh no, what do I do? You know? So I ended up actually teaching myself to knit back, knit into these stitches and move these stitches back to this needle. That's not what you do. What you actually do is, now that you have all of the stitches in your right hand, you're going to switch the needle that has the stitches back to your left hand and take the blank needle back in your right hand. Now we're going to go again. Okay, remember, wrap it around your pinky, over your pointer finger, and that just holds the yarn. It tensions it for you so that your stitches are more even. Okay, now I'm going to take my blank needle, stick it from front to back. Okay, I'm going to wrap around and through. So up, over, and through, up, over, and through, up, over, and through, up, over, and through, up, over, and through. And notice with this finger, the pointer finger on my right hand, I'm controlling the stitch that I'm knitting into, and I'm also using my thumb to help me push the stitch off the needle. So over, and see how I'm holding on to that stitch, and through, over, and through, over, and through, all the way to the end of your knitting. Okay, and remember, now I'm taking from the right hand, putting it into the left, taking my empty needle into my right hand. Okay, and I'm just going to continue knitting, and I'm going to get to about halfway, and I'm going to set my knitting down. And I'm going to show you what to do when you do this. Like, let's say you get a phone call, or your baby's crying, or your cat is acting crazy like my cat tends to do. So, oh my goodness, something's going on, and I set my knitting down, and I come back to it. Uh-oh, where do I start? I can't remember. Do I go back this way? Do I go this way? I don't know. So when you put your knitting down midway through a row, this always got me when I first started knitting. What you want to do is pick it up and remember that your working yarn, the yarn that's connected to your ball, is always going to come off the right hand side. So wherever you stopped, it's going to come off the right hand side. You want to hold where it's coming off the right hand side in your right hand. Okay, and you're going to hold, see, it's not coming off the left, so I'm going to hold these stitches in my left hand. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is remember, tension your yarn around your fingers and you can start knitting. Okay, and see, we don't have a hole there. Okay, let's say that I put my knitting down, and this was when I first started knitting, and I came back to it and I couldn't remember which direction to knit. So I picked it up and I thought, oh, I must be knitting on this side. So what I would do, and this is more if you're purling too, but what I would do is I would knit this, okay, and I'm going to show you what happens if you pick it up and knit in the wrong direction. Okay, so initially it looks pretty normal when you just set it down and take a look at it. Okay, you will notice that here it's shorter than here. That's because I stopped right here and started knitting on these stitches again. So these ones have an extra row to these. Now let's say I didn't notice that and I keep going. When I knit across all of these stitches again, I'm going to see that when I knit over the place where I turned around, I'm going to have a hole. And you do not want this hole in your knitting. Okay, so I'm to the spot where I set it down. Okay, I knit across. Notice it's still kind of wonky, it's lopsided, but there's a big hole right here in my knitting. So remember, if you put your knitting down midway through, you want that working yarn to always be on your right hand needle. So if the yarn's coming off of the right hand, hold that needle in your right hand. Okay, and then you're going to knit and finish that row. Okay, and that is the knit stitch.